and they could not, they applied for it
Okay.
because I was a soldier, but so was everybody else a soldier, you know. But within, say, 2 months after I got out, we had a telephone. We got a telephone.
Do you remember, and my frame of reference on this was watching The Little Rascals. They would go and collect pots and pans and tires, and do you remember ever doing that, or were you in the military and young kids were
I remember
doing
when
it?
they did it, but I wasn't home because I was in the military for 3 years.
Sure. So they were actually getting those supplies for you.
But they would show. I'd get the local town paper once a week, and it would show this big pile of pots and pans, you know, that they had contributed for the war. And they would show the air raid wardens because Point Marion, Pennsylvania, is on the Monongahela River, which flows north. It starts in West Virginia and goes to Pittsburgh, where it becomes part of the Ohio.
Okay.
Before
Isn't that only one of like 2 rivers that flows north?
that and Nanaw,
Okay.
and it flows straight north. But anyway, but at Point Marion, the Cheat River ran into the Monongahela, and then it continued as the Monongahela. Well, they had air raid wardens because German planes, which impossible for them to fly across the Atlantic, might mistaken us for Pittsburgh. So they had air raid wardens where we had to pull the shades down, make sure no light was showing, you know, and they would patrol the streets, you know. But what it did, it had a purpose. The purpose was to bring the war conditions home. Let the people realize what it was like to live under real war conditions. And they patrolled them very seriously. They had outposts on a hill, you know, where they could see for long ways if there were any airplanes that were not recognized. And that's in a small town in western Pennsylvania. First of all, there was no German plane that could even fly across the Atlantic.
And that would be something too, is I think the spirit of the American citizen was
the greatest age. The spirit with rationing. For instance, they can only buy so much coffee, sugar, meats.
Sure.
Any desirable thing was rationed. Gasoline was a big rationing item. Even after I got home out of the Army, it was still being rationed. But people managed to, first of all, we didn't have to suffer from that because we didn't have a car. But our people that did have a car, they would take my mother or father to Uniontown once in a while to do shopping. They didn't have any gasoline.
Okay.
So
the people, I don't think, would complain the way modern people would complain, in that they knew they were doing their part for the bigger picture.
Exactly. Like, for instance, coffee was very rationed, very rationed.
That I probably would complain about.
No, it was a very rationing item. But
okay. And so, when do you think you got your first television?
we got our first television early, and the reason we got it early was that we had just heard about colored TV. We never had a black and white in my house, and my mother and I had gone shopping at Sears in Arlington, and for some reason or other they had workers working on this one television set, which was out of order, and but they got it going again, you know, and I says, how much does that cost? He said, well, right now, because it's a repair job, you can get it for $80.
What year is this?
I think that was in the late 40s.
Late 40s?
Late
Okay.
40s. We didn't have it before the war.
Okay.
Nobody had it before the war.
Sure.
But then when they started coming out, and this was a repair job that we got, but it was color.
Okay. That's all. And so, do you remember what your shows were? Like, can you remember? I remember
I remember. Until then, radio was a big thing. Bob Hope was the people. Everybody listened to Bob Hope on the radio.
Okay.
And there were other named people like him that were on radio.
And they would almost do
Serial.
like soap opera type things where
Yeah,
everybody would
they'd
have
be
a
on
role.
They'd have their particular night, you know, and they would be on, and everybody said, did you see so-and-so last night? Did you see this? Not see here.
Yeah.
And like boxing matches, they would
Mhm.
take over, they would be announced. And I'd have a right one to the jaw and a left one jab to the, you hear these 15-round fights. And the same with ball calling. I remember hearing many Pirate baseball games, many of them, way back, even before the war.
Okay. Did you say the Pirates?
Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Pittsburgh Pirates, right?
Yeah, because I lived in Pennsylvania.
Sure. So that was your home team.
Yeah. And, but I had been, before the war, I had been to Pirate games and I'd been to Steeler football games in
Okay.
Pittsburgh.
And do you know how old you were when you did that? Like,
I think I went to the first Pirate, I was a newspaper boy. And if you got so many prescriptions, new subscriptions,
yeah.
you could, I think for 3 new subscriptions, you could go to a baseball game to Pittsburgh. They'd pay for the bus from Point Marion to Pittsburgh, your ticket in there and your food, and trip back home.
Huh.
So I got that there. I went to the New York World's Fair by the same
Oh, wow.
1940.
In 1940?
Yeah, by the same way.
Okay.
And it was hard to get subscriptions to, it was 20 cents a week. And people, to get them to subscribe to the paper, it was,
So you had to be a salesman?
yeah. And then the newspaper, I used to deliver 90 papers a day.
Okay.
And I'd carry them on my chest with a belt. And I had regular customers. And I could walk down the middle of the street, and occasionally I'd miss the porch and put it up on the roof. And I'd have to go up their bedrooms and get out to the porch and get the paper for them. And I had to collect on Saturdays for the papers. And I think I made $1.80 a week for delivering 90 papers a day, 6 days a week.
And if I could even say, when you were growing up, they didn't have the communities the way they have today where the houses are all in a row.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah, they were, I could just walk down the middle of the street and
Okay.
post those papers both ways.
Okay.
And there wasn't even that much traffic on the roads.
Okay. Not as many cars.
But no, my newspaper job, between the Sunday job and the weekly job, gave me a couple bucks a week.
That's fantastic.
And then at Christmas time, I'd collect tips altogether somewhere around $4 or $5. Now, you give $10 or $15 individually to them for a newspaper delivery.
Yeah.
To your door.
When you were a kid and you had that money, what was the big splurge you would let like, would you go buy candy, baseball cards?
Out of the $2 and something I made a week, $2 went to my mother.
Oh, okay.
She would use it as family income.
Okay.
And my sister did the same way when she became an assistant secretary to the principal of the school. She made like $12 a week. She would give 10 to my mother. Our life started to improve. There were 6 of us. My father, at the peak, was making 55 cents an hour, raising 6 family.
Sure.
Now, we never starved. He had gardens everywhere. We had so much food around the house, we never had to worry about that. And well, as I say, we managed, but then as we started to work, we got a refrigerator. Instead of buying ice, we bought a refrigerator. We bought a real radio, I mean, a good one. Instead of one of these little things that you place on top of a table.
Okay. Now, are you talking about that big stand-up model?
Yeah, we have that. As a matter of fact, we have, it's at Chip's house. He's got our original radio, which is now 80 years old.
Okay.
And
I'll try to remember to take a picture of that, and when we're talking about this, I'll have the picture of the radio come up in that.
It was bought in 1933.
Okay.
So that's what, 77, 87, it's 87 years old. It's a Majestic, it has 11 tubes.
Okay.
Still works, but I wouldn't plug it in at this stage of the game.
Okay. We'll snap some pictures of that and make sure it shows up.
It got a lot of use.
That's cool. And that's the thing too, is they say that when you, definitely when you're reading a book, your mind's eye will create special effects that they can't do in Hollywood even today.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So I would have to imagine, I think even the camaraderie of having your family gather around to sit and listen to this show, because there were, like we're today, we have 70 to 100 channels, and one person's in one room watching, and everyone got together and sat there and listened, and you had your own mental picture as to what was
Well,
going on.
somebody asked me a number of times, how do you think life is treated you? I said, great.
Yeah.
He said, what do you mean? I said, well, how many people can say they were old enough to live through the Great Depression and understand? Well, we've had some research. I said, you've not had a depression in your lifetime.
Right.
Well, what's a depression? I said, I'll tell you. During the Great Depression, the population in the United States was 120 million.
Mm-hmm.
20 million people were unemployed. The women had not entered the workforce yet. So most of those were main breadwinners of households.
Sure.
There were every railroad train had hobos riding all over. They were not crooks. They would stop and beg you for a slice of bread with
Sure.
butter on it, nothing
Yeah.
on it, just give me a slice of bread.
Yeah.
And we would give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
We expected it every time a train
Sure.
would stop by there. And there were hobos on the trains all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have any entertainment? Yeah, I says, all three of us could go to a movie for 10 cents. A matinee on Saturday would cost 10 cents.
Yeah.
And we didn't miss a single one of them. But sometimes a dime was hard to find.
Did you ever sneak into a movie?
Huh?
Did you ever sneak into a movie? You and your friends?
My family.
No, but did you and your friends ever sneak into a movie?
No, you couldn't sneak into this movie. There was
Okay.
only one door and the other ones were impenetrable.
Okay.
No, it was impossible to sneak into
Okay.
that movie. But I never went to bed hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody says, well, how about food? I said, I never went to bed hungry. Now, I didn't know what a Coke was, other than if it was a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and they passed out one Coke per person.
Mm-hmm.
Where the owner of the factory would have his birthday party and give you a little cup of ice cream and a Coke to go with it on his big yard.
Sure, sure.
And I says, but no, soft drinks were. My mother she would buy this extract for root beer,
Yeah.
and she would make one or twice in the summertime root beer, and about 12 bottles each time. And we would drink it up pretty fast, and that was
Yeah.
the end of the.
My favorite soda.
But you see, the thing is, but it had its advantages because we didn't have the dental care you have today.
Mhm.
They didn't have fluoride in the water in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we had pretty good teeth because we ate good food.
Sure.
It was,
One thing I think is, if you think about like what we're doing now, is we're paying a lot to get organic vegetables and organic meats.
yeah.
You guys were growing it in your backyard.
No question-
You
no
had
question about it.
everything you ate was organic.
My mother would can a couple hundred jars of tomatoes,
Yeah,
50 jars of green beans, all was homegrown.
yeah. I would say, because you just said that someone asked you, like, how did it treat you? And it sounded almost as if when you said it was great, there was surprise. It sounds like you had an amazing amount of love in your family.
Every penny my father made was for the good
Yeah.
of the household. He never even seen his checks.
Yeah. That's
It was, and that was true about Grant Street. Grant Street wasn't paved, it was the Italian Street, Little Italy
Okay.
they called
yeah.
it. And they were all from the same town, they knew each other in Italy, and they
Mhm.
knew each other over here. And they were all hard-working people.
Sure.
And our house burned down in 1932 to the heart of the Great Depression.
How did you guys
Well,
snap
that's a
back
good
from
question. We had dropped our fire insurance because we couldn't afford it. It was like $20 or $30 a year, and we couldn't
Mhm.
afford it.
Sure.
The house burned, totaled.
Mm-hmm.
Our neighbors, this was in January, and it was cold, and there was snow on the ground. But I remember this woman across the street, a young woman, pulling mattresses out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
People pulling other pieces of furniture.
Your neighbors came together as a
Yeah.
community.
And enough
Okay.
that a day later, we were in a rental house at $5 a month. And later on, we settled in a better rental house. But my father was never able to build another house because it cost $5,000 in those days to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
And he never could afford that and raised 4 children at
Sure.
the same time. But we got over it pretty well. I mean, of course, as soon as Anita started to work, and the following year I started to work, then we started to enjoy the luxuries of life. Of
Okay.
having instead of buying ice, we had a refrigerator and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And instead of listening to somebody else's radio, we had our own radio. And,
Okay.
So I remember those things happening, which doesn't happen today. You're born with all those things.
Right. You talked about going to the movies, the matinees on Saturday. Do you remember having a favorite movie back then, or
Yeah,
even today?
One
What's
thing
your?
about, they always had double features on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a Western
Okay.
with a regular movie.
Okay.
Tom Mix was one of the cowboys. I forget the other cowboy, but I used to watch all the cowboys. The Westerns were the big hits.
That's the one you like for the westerns.
The Westerns were, but they usually had that was a secondary.
Mm-hmm.
You usually had a regular movie. For instance, I saw Gone with the Wind for 35 cents
In the theater.
in the theater.
Uh-huh.
And in 1938 or 39 is when they came out with air-conditioned theaters.
Wow.
And they advertised it, be up on top, air-conditioned. That was above their regular banners.
Uh-huh.
Because otherwise, you went to a movie and it was in the summertime, it was like being
Yeah.
in an oven.
Yeah. Now today, I almost think summertime's a great time to see a movie because it's so hot out. You want to sit in a cold, dark theater.
Yeah.
And I did that. There was a day I was working on a house that I was renovating. Hot summer, and I had to get the car worked on. So I brought my car to a Sears, and in the mall there's a theater. So while my car's brakes and all the other stuff were getting done, I went over and watched a movie and just fell asleep in the movie theater watching the movie. But yeah, an air-conditioned theater would have to be.
Air-conditioned theaters, when it came out, boy, they had these big cloth banners all around them, air-cooled,
Yeah.
you know, and they would advertise the coolness instead of the movie.
Sure. So you saw Gone with the Wind. Did you have a favorite Western? Is there one Western that stands out as being the one that you would go to every time if you
No,
could?
there was only one restaurant in town.
No, Western.
Western,
The movies.
yeah, my favorite was Ken Maynard. He was the cowboy.
Okay.
Ken Maynard and Buck Jones.
And those are the two best actors for Westerns?
Westerns, they
Okay.
were it. And then the movies were Tyrone Power, Clark Gable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you ever heard of any one of those.
I've heard of Clark Gable. I have not heard of Tyrone.
Tyrone Power.
Yeah, I haven't heard of
In fact,
him.
I like Tyrone better than I did Clark Gable.
Okay.
What made Clark Gable popular was Gone with the Wind.
Sure.
And what made it popular was the last words, there was no swear words at all.
And he said, damn, right?
In Gone with the Wind, when he tells his girlfriend, frankly, I don't give a damn. Boy, it was a talk all over because he had said damn on the, and I
Sure.
said, boy, they ought to go to the movies now.
And that was a racy,
Huh?
that was a racy thing for him to say that.
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
that made the headlines for a long time.
Wow, okay.
Frankly, dear, I don't give a damn.
How old were you when that came out? Do you remember?
I was in my teens.
In the teens? Okay. Oh, and you said there was one restaurant in town. How often would you guys go to a restaurant to eat versus never?
I
Okay.
never remember going out with my family to a restaurant to eat.